and this boat is certainly seaworthy enough, but it gets kind of rolly sometimes. It gets too rough, and a lot of people don't care for that. Especially if they're from out in the Midwest where there's not much water.
Yeah.
I actually have a brother that he lives in Arizona, but he used to live in Nebraska. He married a girl out there and did all that deal and lived there and raised a family, and then they moved to Arizona. And it was primarily because he couldn't hardly ride in a car without getting seasick. He had terrible motion sickness his entire life. So he moved out there thinking it might be better. And he said it isn't any better out there. When he used to ride a 5-row picker, he said he'd get just as sick.
Yeah.
So anyway. So we all have our own color buoys out here. Every buoy that's out here has different coloring. These lavender ones that you see kicking around, there's one right over there.
Yeah.
Those are actually my granddaughter's.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
Now this is actually a wooden trap, obviously.
And
this is an old-timey. This is the kind that I used to have when I was a kid. One lobster in there. Got plenty of bait on there. Probably our bait came from out your way somewhere for this pig high. It's,
Yeah, that was surprising.
yeah, it really is. What they do is once they've when they've cut the bacon and usable parts off of the hog, the skin and a little bit of the fat that's left, they cut it into pieces about this big. I'll show you.
Yeah,
And that's
cool.
what we use for bait, and it works really pretty good, considering that we're losing a lot of our bait fish, which is it's causing a lot of problems with money, expenses. So, these are called doubles because obviously you got 2 traps on a string, but a lot of guys will have as many as 12 to 14 on a string between 2 buoys, and then when they're fishing way offshore where there's whales, they're required to have at least 25 traps between strings. The whole idea being to reduce the number of lines, vertical lines in the water that a whale can run into. Okay. The other thing, I did the line between traps. We used to use floating line, and we did that so it wouldn't get tangled on the bottom down there. Right? Well, that got to be a problem because they thought the whale swimming down to feed or whatever would get caught in those big loops. So they outlawed that, and we are now required to only use sinking lines, so the line lays on the bottom.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the other whale thing we do is this piece right here. See how it's purple and white?
Yeah.
And it's tied onto that, and another one like it there. That will break at about 1,500 pounds, which is nothing to a whale.
Right.
All right. The main line probably takes 3,000–4,000 pounds to tension straight. So we have to put that there, and also on our buoy, so that it'll break if entanglement happens.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you a little bit about this guy. He's way too small, but it's a little female. We're going to talk about her. If you look at these, what do I do with my glasses? They don't crook or something. Can't see. There we are. If you look right here on the female, see these 2 little tiny feelers here? Well, on the female, they're very thin and fragile and flexible, okay? And I'll show you a male eventually. And on the male, they're more bony, and there's like 2 joints in them. Also, you see the small hairs on here? Those red hairs? Well, the male doesn't have those either, because that's actually what the female attaches her eggs to when she spawns and has her eggs underneath here. All right, so this is, like I say, a little female lobster. Now normally, and our measure would be 3 1/4 on one side and 5 on the other side. So on the 3 1/4 inch side, you put it in the eye socket right here, and that measures the length of the carapace, the back. here. Now that has to be 3 1/4 inches, but this guy is way too small,
Yeah.
obviously. Right?
Gotcha.
Now, so we have really what they call a slot between 3 1/4 and 5 inches. That's the legal size. Now, there's some exceptions to that, though. If an egg, if a lobster, rather, female lobster, has eggs showing under her tail, there's 2 things we're supposed to do. One is throw her back. She's protected at that point. But the other thing, before we throw her back, is we take our tool here and we put it down on something like wood, and we put a nice notch right down through that tail right there. And what that does, it tells everybody that hauls a trap up with her in it that she's a breeding female and she's got to go back. So she's totally protected at that point.
Okay.
Gotcha.
It has to be the flipper to the right of the center flipper here. It can't be just, well, see, actually she's notched over here, but that one notch doesn't make any difference at all. That's done by something bitter or whatever.
Yeah.
And what it actually says in the law book is that if that flipper is mutilated in any way, so it doesn't have to be a perfect notch or anything else.
Right.
A lot of times the fishermen, they don't have a notching tool handy
Right.
there. They just take the sheath knife and cut the corner off of it or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
So that helps them. But the problem is an awful lot of guys don't do it.
Right.
They throw her back with her eggs. Once she's dropped her eggs, then she becomes a legal female again.
Gotcha.
So, but that doesn't protect the species down the road, and that's
Right.
what we're trying to do. So,
That's very cool.
another thing you're looking at here. The second thing is once they get over 5 inches long, we throw all of them back, the males and the female. We didn't know in the beginning, but male and female lobsters have to be very close to the same physical size in order to mate.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you can't have a big old male and a little tiny female, or vice versa, it just won't work. All right, so we didn't know that in the beginning, so we were throwing all the big female lobsters over, thinking we were doing a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
and they weren't mating because they couldn't find any big males. So
Right.
that, you know, how they discovered that, I don't know, but they did anyway. So eventually they made the law that everything over 5 inches has to go back. Now the idea behind that is a lobster that's just barely legal rather, 3 1/4 inches, could have about 40,000 eggs under her tail.
Wow.
Okay, when she spawns or when she mates. A lobster that is over 5 inches could have 1.5 million eggs.
Oh, wow.
So we want that big female lobster back in the
Yeah.
water doing what she's doing real well. Okay. Now, and I'll show you what the male looks like, and also hopefully some legal lobsters in here.
Mm-hmm.
If you look closely at your lobster, you'll see that on one claw they have crusher teeth here that look very much like your back teeth.
Yep.
No cavities in this one. No amalgam. I know about the amalgam because I get somebody trying. I've got a gal that wants to take all my fillings out and replace them.
Gotcha.
I said, honey, I'm 76 years old. They don't hurt. Let's leave them alone. You know, and I couldn't.
I'm 44. I say the same thing. Don't mess something that's working.
Yeah, don't break it if it's fixed. You know. Anyway, so the one claw is like that, like your back one. It's also very strong, and you can see by the shape of it, it's a little bit different
Oh, yeah.
shape. It's thicker through it than the other one, and this big broad area is all muscle in here that pulls that crusher claw closed. Okay, but because of all of that rigmarole, it's slow. All right, or it's comparatively slow. So you put this in here, not very fast, right? But you put it in this one. Come on, you.
Wake up.
She doesn't want to do it today.
Okay.
All right, well, they don't always, but you see all the hairs, all these
Yeah.
little hairs on here. Maybe she's sick. I don't know. When they're down on the bottom, in camouflage with, you know, seaweed and moss and stuff like that, they don't dig in, but there is stuff around them. But she'll have this claw here wide open, just like it is now, wider, even actually like that.
Yeah.
If a little eel or a small baby crab or something like that goes through there and touches one of those hairs, boom, this thing closes like a guillotine or like a, what do you call this thing? Venus flytrap.
Okay,
So
yeah.
really quicker than you can imagine. You know, I used to put my finger through here like that. I don't do that with these anymore. I'm not sure if they got faster or I got slower, but something happened. So anyway, these guys can lay there and they have nothing moving at all right? But they feel that, they could actually be asleep, I believe. I think it's a reaction, an automatic reaction.
Oh,
Where's
wow.
my hat? Not careful. So once they've caught something in there, these teeth in here are really sharp, and it's fast, but it's not very strong, not strong enough to kill a lot of things. So it immediately passes whatever she's captured or grabbed over to the crusher claw. Another thing is when lobsters are traveling on the bottom, they push their claws in front of them as if they were like plows, you know? And when they do that, if they disturb a little shrimp or something like that, he'll pop up. You know, if he pops up, they grab him and pass it over to the crusher claw. A lot of people, they get the idea that lobsters are just scavengers and eat only dead, rotten meat. You know, well, that's simply completely false. Now they know that that's not true at all. They actually are designed to catch and kill. They're a predator just like a mountain lion or anything else. They don't growl, but they also are in the spider family. They're 8-legged and they're in the spider family. And if you look at their mouths here, this guy's being really nice. You see these two things like this?
Yeah.
Well, they look exactly like a spider's mandible,
yeah.
you know? So, I mean, and they can filter feed besides killing and feeding things. All these hairs on here, they sweep the water and they sweep microorganisms out, and then she can deposit those in her mouth, which is in here, okay? That's where her mouth is right there. So another interesting thing is that once they catch something and tear it apart, we're going to have some waves here, folks. A lot of times it's passed back to these 4 claws right here that are little pinches here, and that's because that's where her sense of taste is, her sense of smell, and her hearing are all under this, out of these places right here. Hold on just a minute.